Login accepted.
This is a presentation, just a little bit about me. My name is Ian Eusebio. There's me with Billy. I'm a fourth year CIS major and also a competitions officer at Swift. Hello, welcome in. So if you ever competed in any of the Swift competitions and did any of the Windows boxes, chances are I had a part in creating that virtual environment for the competitions. Just great ways to learn different like cybersecurity concepts. So I recommend competing in our future competitions if you're interested. And I'm also a SWintern, which is a Swift intern. So that's like Swift's intern board for assisting the executive board. I believe that openings are you're able to join and like apply over the summer. So I really recommend it. You get a cool little polo like this with your Discord handle, and you even get to do your own projects. And this here is mine. And I see some Swift pals apply for Swift intern board. Yeah, you're president, but that's okay. Okay, so here I have a little icebreaker for you all. It's, have you built a game with a narrative? And if not, do you have like a favorite premise or storyline in a video game? Another preface, Swift apparently has this reputation for being clicky. So I'm challenging you all. I see all you Swifties in the corner. Introduce yourself to someone new and discuss these questions. Yeah? Yeah? All right. Right? Like, no, like, what? Right? Like, okay. And if you're in the chat, please share it. Yeah, I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes. So, yeah, you know, what's the point of a collab if you're not going to be social, right? All right. Starting now. Go, go, go. Let's reel it in. Yeah. Glad to see so many conversations. We love being social. All right. Thank you all for indulging me. So if anyone says Swift is clicky, well, we just proved them wrong. So
one meeting.
It's a continual thing. It's a process. All right, so here's what we're going to cover today. Just what is Ren'Py, some background, describing what Insecure Deserialization is, looking at a virus that takes advantage of this Insecure Deserialization vulnerability through a save file within Ren'Py, and then lastly, some prevention tips and the outro. So first off, what is Ren'Py? Has anyone here played Doki Doki Literature Club? Yeah, yeah, that counts. Yeah, no, Sam, I was too cheap to buy it, but actually, right, but yup, but basically, it's a kind of slice of life visual novel that gradually turns into a horror game, and you unlock the different endings by manipulating files on the computer system. Pretty interesting premise. It looks just kind of like a fun anime game, but it's pretty scary, and it was made with Ren'Py, so it's cool to see a game reach such big commercial success with this engine, which is a Python-based game engine for text-based choose-your-own adventure games. Here's a bit of why I use Ren'Py. Has anyone here worked with the engine before, made like any games or projects on it? Okay, nice. We got a couple here. Good to see it. For those unfamiliar, these are just some benefits of it. It's free, it's open source, beginner friendly, and since it's open source, we're actually going to dig into some of the code a bit later in the presentation. I made a game with my friend for Bronco Hacks last year, and he described it as coding a slideshow. So if you kind of want like a simpler game engine, I recommend it. You can have multiple endings, branching narratives. Swift even uses Ren'Py sometimes for our CTF or capture the flag challenges, just fun little bonus challenges. And these are some game examples on the right here. Year of Springs is another slice of life type of game about 3 women in Japan. Don't Open Your Eyes is another horror game. So lots of different genres. These are more games. This is like the fun part where I get to recommend different types of games, but basically this is the fun part where I get to recommend some games with Ren'Py. The one on the left is Black Closet. It's like a mystery game where there's a card collecting aspect of it. One in the top right is Magical Diary, where you go to this Harry Potter type of school, and your exams in that game are actually the dungeon. So it was made with Ren'Py, but there's some dungeon crawling aspects of it. And lastly, someone even made chess in Ren'Py, which is pretty interesting. So if you want to do something outside of the box with this engine, it's definitely possible. And yeah, just giving you guys some ideas on what's possible with it. So you may be wondering, how is this connected to cybersecurity? Like, thanks for the game Rex, but video games are pieces of software that need to be secured. Specifically, save files are an attack vector for hackers. And since Ren'Py is built with Python, and it's Python based, it essentially is Python, it leaves it open to the same vulnerabilities as Python, including insecure deserialization, which brings me to my next section. You'll figure out why there's pickled foods on the slide in a bit. So before we dive into the vulnerability, these are some this is a slide to just show how software is run, and by extension, how malware is run. I stole these slides from Dylan, so if you recognize them, there they are. Basically, there's two broad categories where there's compiled programs, which are, of course, generally dependent on the CPU architecture and the operating system. Like the ones in the sub-bullet points, the exe files, MSI, DLL files, those are all exclusive to Windows. And then there's the script category, which of course is run through an interpreter. This virus is going to be under this category, which is our focus for today, and scripts are, of course, more human readable, and we'll be able to see some in action here. So now that we went over how software / malware is run, here's a little refresher on one of the methods that software programs are able to store data, one of them being serialization. Serialization is when you turn an object into a byte stream, essentially, since that makes it more easily able to be stored and transmitted. Byte streams can essentially be any type of data, because a byte stream is just groups of 8 binary digits. It's pretty nice because let's say you have like a backend in Python and it needs to communicate with the front end in JavaScript. Byte streams allow them to communicate across different programming languages. And deserialization is just the reverse of serialization. So it takes that byte stream and it turns it back into the original object. And insecure deserialization is when hackers take advantage of this process so they can run arbitrary code to a deserializer. This arbitrary code can be anything from deleting data, stealing data, and maybe even like creating some backdoors, things like that, running system commands. Very scary stuff. As a bonus, this is also a bug class that can show up in cybersecurity competitions. They may ask you to look at, like, say, a web server and be like, oh, this web server uses insecure deserialization, exploit that bug, and gain root access to the web server. This is a bigger diagram of the concept here. As you can see, it's the object, and it goes to the byte stream. In our case, it's going to be turned into a video game save file in the middle there, but it can also go to databases, to memories, or transmitted through networks, and then turning back into the object through deserialization. Excuse me. Python's version of this is called pickling, which is why pickling and unpickling are on the screen here. So yeah, it's Python's process for serializing and deserializing objects. I believe it was called pickle because, similar to how you pickle food to preserve it and then retrieve it later, you also serialize objects and then deserialize them for later. Ren'Py uses this pickle library to handle its save files. It's more dangerous than other forms of serialization because it can execute code. And even the Python docs recommend against unpickling data that you don't know. There's like a big warning sign in the documentation. So it's something to look out for. And then here is some virus analysis and background on it. So this virus was actually created by a magician that turned into a security engineer. I think that's such a crazy career path. You know, the world is your oyster. You can do what you want. But he thinks that they're related because magic relies on deception, similar to malware. With magic, you got like the sleight of hand type of tricks, the kind of misdirection, the visual illusions, and with malware, they also deceive people through things like social engineering, phishing attacks, and in this case, Trojan viruses. And then how I got the idea for this workshop is Bronco Hacks last year, I made a dating sim where you have to recruit people to join your team for the hackathon. I'm going to demonstrate it to show that this save file virus works on any game. So you guys are able to see my cringy little hackathon game, but this is the flyer for this year's hackathon. It's happening later this month. I recommend participating if you can. Yes, I see the thumbs up from Tony. Love to see it. The video game category, it was pretty tricky because of course, it's hard to make a game in 2 days, which is why we opted for Ren'Py to make a more simple text-based game. Now we're going to look at the demo, so bear with me. I hope this demo works. I have a virtual machine here where I'm going to run Ren'Py and my game and everything. Here it is in the terminal window. This is the Ren'Py launcher. So here we go. Okay, might just take a minute. So this is the game. You put in your name. If you don't put one, it's Billy Bronco. This is the game, and then like you try to talk to I'm not gonna spend a super long amount of time on this, but basically you talk to someone and it's like, oh hi, I'm CIS, the CIS major, connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah, pretty goofy game, but these are two save files. The first one is just the normal one I did earlier this week, and then this one is a spooky virus one. So let's go ahead and load it, and then it'll show this warning, be like, hey, like, are you sure you want to load that? And then let's just say yes. So it pranks us. It says get stick bug, and it plays this GIF. Like that's the virus, nothing too crazy, and it traps you in this loop. If you try to exit, if you try to exit, it says you can't, no quit, only stick bug. So you have to manually quit the virus, but before we do that, in the terminal, it also prints out this iCarp signature, which is basically to make sure that it shows up during antivirus scans, but we're just gonna kill this process. Okay, so I just searched the process list for anything with Ren'Py in it, and now I'm going to kill that process. So there we go. That was a demo. It was a pretty, thank you. It's a pretty short demo. But of course, not every virus is going to be as easily escaped from as this demo one. So looking at the actual save file, gonna analyze it a bit more. So Ren'Py save files are zip archives with screenshots like the one you saw, metadata, and then finally the actual game save data, which is this log file. This is what it looks like when you open the log file in Notepad. So the bottom line is obfuscated, where it was compressed with zlib and then encoded with base64, just so it wouldn't be human readable. And then the top part that's more human readable, these are, I believe, pickle opcodes. So if you've ever like done assembly, this is like Python's pickle library version of it. But the main thing we want to look at here is the payload. This is the obfuscated version, so like the hidden version. And then this is the de-obfuscated version. So this is what it looks like after we de-obfuscated it. I feel it's pretty self-explanatory. You go from like after you load it, it just jumps to start, and yeah, it just traps you in that loop at start where it spams you with that stick bug GIF, and then at the bottom, label quit. If you try to quit, it jumps you back to start after saying no quit, only stick bug. So pretty self-explanatory. The two lines that stand out that aren't as obvious are the print one, which is the ICAR string we saw earlier, which is the European Institute for Computer Antivirus Research. Again, this is just the string that's put in test viruses to make sure that antivirus software pick up the virus. And then if mscriptum, it's an if statement. So if someone loaded this save file on the browser version of Ren'Py as opposed to the desktop version, they would still be able to, I guess, experience the stick bug video virus. So it's pretty nice that the virus is technically like cross-platform compatible with both the browser and the desktop version. Very inclusive of them. And then here is a more advanced version of the virus. Yep, very, very discreet. All right, hope you guys enjoyed that little example video. Pretty scary, right? Got access to the webcam, like manipulated files in the home directory, even outside of the game directory, so pretty spooky. Lastly, this section is the prevention and outro, some strategies to possibly mitigate loading save files that are possibly dangerous. So Ren'Py actually has a built-in security measure for this where it now uses these save tokens to warn users, like that warning we got at the bottom where it was like, are you sure you trust this saves creator and everyone who could have changed the file? So it does that through some elliptic curve digital signature algorithm, which I'll try to cover briefly. And again, looking at the official documentation, Ren'Py advises against sharing save files, and then Python also advises against unpickling insecure data. So this is the kind of more like mathy part. It might be confusing, but I'm going to do my best to explain it, where basically it uses this elliptic curve digital signature algorithm to make sure save files are from trusted sources and not tampered with. The equation for this would be Q equals NP, where Q and P are points on this elliptical curve. Q is the public key and N is the private key. If this were a normal type of equation, then you would just be able to divide P by both sides to get N. However, that's not entirely possible because there's not really an inverse of this process, because again, Q and P are elliptic curve points. So basically the only way to find N is to do what this GIF is doing at the bottom, where it looks like a fish shooting lasers, but basically it's drawing a line between these 2 points, seeing where it hits the elliptic curve, and then reflecting it across the x-axis. So computers have to do this process manually to find out how many times it gets to Q there in the bottom left, which can take a while. Even if someone had like a quantum computer, it might take multiple days, but I feel like most people don't have easy access to that, so it's safe to say that elliptic curves are pretty secure. And yeah, just pretty interesting concept. This is also used in other areas of cryptography, especially like encrypting files. Next up, if that confused you, that's okay. The good thing about Python is that it abstracts away a lot of the kind of more complex math and programming concepts. So this here is a snippet from Ren'Py source code that added this security feature that makes sure that save files are created on the user system and verified, and then if they're not, that's when it shows the warning. This arrow here is pointing at just like SK, VK. SK is the signing key, so it's basically just a Python command to generate the private key to create the signature, and then VK is the public key, which verifies the signature. So it's basically just making these keys to check if the save file hasn't been tampered with and to verify its integrity. So outside of Ren'Py's built-in security measures, there are some ways to mitigate some risk. However, I will say with a big caveat that none of these are exactly foolproof. You can download save files or upload them to scanners like VirusTotal. However, VirusTotal isn't going to catch every known virus, so there's still risk there. You could also open the virus in a virtual machine like how I demoed earlier, but there are cases of virtual machines escaping, or virtual machine viruses escaping and infecting the host machine. Molly knows about that. And then lastly, loading them in Ren'Py's web browser version. Browsers typically have better isolation, but I'd still be just a bit worried because they might access maybe your cookies or something like that. And then next up is the prevalence. So of course, save file sharing isn't super common because the whole purpose of these video games at Ren'Py is to play through the story and experience the whole story. So if you download someone else's save file and load it, then you skip a good part of the story you don't experience for yourself. However, there are some smaller and niche communities of Ren'Py that do share save files between players. This is because some Ren'Py games are like over hundreds of thousands of words and they kind of just want to skip to a good part. And if it's your friend that you trust, that could be okay, but if it's just a random person online, they could do what the videos in the demo viruses did. So pretty scary. Another issue is that I've seen some like smaller indie, hello, welcome in, smaller indie game dev developers upload their, or have players upload their save files to help with debugging. And I get the intention, and many players just want to help their favorite game developer or studio fix their game and everything. However, again, this is also pretty sketchy because, you know, indie studios don't have the same capacity as enterprise or like larger ones or protection. So if someone uploads a malicious save file, the game dev opens it, they could just compromise their computer and kill the entire project. So yeah, and you know, a lot of indie devs, I'm sure they just work on their laptop, so it's not like they have a ton of resources, of course. And then lastly, Unity is another video game engine that is also susceptible to this type of insecure deserialization vulnerability. Has anyone here played Totally Accurate Battle Simulator? Okay, nice. I see some people. It's like this little 3D battle simulator game with like red and blue people that like fight each other. Kind of cute, but basically that uses the obsolete binary formatter class for their save files within Unity. So again, it's the same, it's a different language, different engine, but same principle in that people are able to upload malicious save files. So if you want to kind of explore more into these topics, as a Ren'Py version 8.40, this doesn't work. It just simply causes the game to crash, which is why I used an older version. But if you want to be a little adventurous, you could try to create a version of the example virus that works on newer versions of Ren'Py. Just might need to tweak the code a bit. You could also possibly try to reverse engineer the advanced version of the virus from the video earlier that showed the attacker getting access to the webcam and everything. Reverse engineering is actually really hard, but let me know if you're able to do that, because that would be really cool. And also, don't release this stuff out in the wild if you do, and if you do, you didn't get the idea from me. But yeah, so these are some sources if you want to learn more. There's a write-up on GitHub about this virus if you'd like to read the whole thing. It's a good a learning resource. I also linked the video that the virus creator made, the one where he is like a magician and then explains the vulnerability with cracking pickles and everything, and then of course the official documentation, the source code, and then some good articles on insecure deserialization, serialization, deserialization within Python, and then this elliptic curve cryptography video really helped explain how Ren'Py was able to use that concept to protect its save files. So yeah, that about does it for my presentation. Pretty short one, but I hope you were all able to learn a lot. There were a lot of different concepts in there, and it was just cool to see cybersecurity overlap with game development and all that. Thank you, Dachi and Game Dev Club, for letting me guest speak, and Molly and the e-board for supporting this. This was honestly just a ploy for me to talk about anime games during a Swift meeting, so mission accomplished. Yeah, you got me. There's a sign-in sheet if you guys haven't signed in already. But yeah, I'm graduating next semester, but I hope you guys collab more in the future. But yeah, thank you again.